Hello everyone and welcome to the Young and the Restless channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The quiet rhythm of the Young and the Restless is about to be shattered once again as long buried secrets claw their way back to the surface, threatening to unravel lives that have been carefully stitched together over decades. When Dr. Stephanie Simmons steps back into the spotlight, her presence alone carries a weight of mystery. But it's the confession she brings during the week of April 6 to 10 that promises to send shockwaves through Genoa City. There's something haunting in the air as she prepares to speak, as though time itself has been holding its breath, waiting for this very moment. What she reveals isn't just a secret, it's a rewriting of history. A truth so powerful that it reshapes everything people thought they knew. And at the center of it all lies a question that refuses to stay buried. What really happened all those years ago when she left town? As her voice trembles with the weight of the past, the revelation begins to unfold, pulling everyone into a storm they never saw coming. In the shadows of that confession emerges the possibility of a life hidden in plain sight, a child conceived in secrecy, a connection that could tie Malcolm Winters to a truth he never imagined. The whispers grow louder, pointing toward a stunning twist. What if Stephanie was pregnant with Malcolm's baby when she vanished all those years ago? And what if that child didn't disappear into obscurity, but instead grew up as someone already standing in the present, someone like Holden Novak? The clues, subtle yet persistent, begin to align in unsettling ways, casting Holden's identity in an entirely new light. His last name, his past, the unanswered questions that may have followed him throughout his life. All of it suddenly feels like pieces of a puzzle that's only now coming together. Yet, with this revelation comes a bittersweet truth. The return of Stephanie and Malcolm isn't meant to linger. Their story burns bright but brief, a flash of intensity rather than a slow burning arc, leaving little time for emotions to settle before everything changes again. As the implications of the truth ripple outward, the mystery of Holden's past deepens with every passing moment. Perhaps he grew up without answers, adopted into a life where his origins were nothing more than a question mark hanging over his identity. Or maybe Stephanie made a choice long ago, passing him off as another man's child in an attempt to bury the truth forever, giving him the Novak name as both a shield and a secret. Either path leads to the same inevitable conclusion. This is no warm reunion waiting to happen. There is no soft embrace of long-lost family here. No easy healing of old wounds. Instead, there's tension, confusion, and the kind of emotional upheaval that leaves scars. Because when a truth this powerful surfaces, it doesn't gently knock on the door. It crashes through it, leaving everything in its wake changed forever. And at the heart of the storm stands Holden, faced with a reality that threatens to tear apart everything he thought he understood about himself. If he were to accept Malcolm and Stephanie with open arms, perhaps there could have been a chance for something beautiful, a new beginning, a chance for family, a reason for them to stay and rebuild what was lost. But this isn't a story that unfolds so simply. Instead, the weight of betrayal and confusion may drive Holden in the opposite direction, pushing him to lash out, to reject the very people who claim to be his blood. The pain of a lifetime without answers could erupt in a single moment, leading him to shut the door on Malcolm and Stephanie before it ever truly opens. And just like that, their presence in Genoa City could fade as quickly as it arrived, leaving behind echoes of what might have been. Yet, even as that door threatens to close, another begins to open, offering a fragile thread of hope in the aftermath of chaos. Lily Winters finds herself standing at the crossroads of this revelation, connected to Holden in a way neither of them expected. Where there is anger, she may bring understanding. Where there is resistance, she may offer patience. As his newfound biological half sister, Lily could become the bridge between Holden and the truth he is struggling to accept, gently trying to guide him toward a place of acceptance. Her efforts may not yield immediate results, but they plant the seeds for something more. Something that could in time grow into a real connection. And perhaps, just perhaps, that connection will be enough to soften Holden's hardened stance. Behind the scenes, the story itself promises to evolve beyond this initial explosion of emotion. With Shamar Moore and Vivica A. Fox set to return to filming, there's a sense that this isn't the end of the journey, but rather the beginning of a longer, more meaningful resolution. Their eventual return could bring a shift in tone, a moment where the anger fades just enough for something more honest to take its place. Holden may not fully embrace them, not right away, but there's a possibility that he begins to soften, to see beyond the shock and into the truth of who they are to him. And in that fleeting window of time before they leave again, there could be a moment of connection, a fragile, imperfect, but deeply human attempt at family. As the dust begins to settle, one thing becomes undeniably clear. Genoa City is once again caught in the grip of secrets that refuse to stay buried. Lives are being rewritten, relationships are being tested, and the past is demanding to be acknowledged, no matter the cost. This isn't just a story about revelation, it's a story about identity, about the choices people make, and about the consequences that follow them across time. And as the echoes of Stephanie's confession continue to ripple through every corner of this world, the promise of what's to come lingers in the air, thick with anticipation. Because in The Young and the Restless, the truth may set you free, but first, it has to break you. The aftermath of that devastating revelation doesn't simply fade into silence, it lingers, heavy and unresolved, as if Genoa City itself is struggling to catch its breath. For Holden Novak, the truth isn't a gift, it's a fracture, a crack splitting through the foundation of everything he believed about himself. Every memory now feels uncertain, every unanswered question from his past suddenly sharpened into something painfully real. The name he carried for so long begins to feel churched, like a borrowed identity that never truly belonged to him. And as the weight of it all settles in, anger becomes the only thing that feels solid, something he can hold on to when everything else is slipping through his fingers. In his eyes, this isn't just a revelation, it's a betrayal that has been quietly shaping his life from the very beginning, without his knowledge or consent. Across from him stands Malcolm Winters, a man equally shaken by the magnitude of what's been uncovered, yet carrying a different kind of pain, one rooted in lost time and stolen chances. There's a quiet desperation in Malcolm's attempts to reach out, as though he's trying to bridge decades of absence in a single moment. He sees not just the man Holden has become, but the son he never knew he had, the years he'll never get back. But every word he offers seems to fall short, unable to penetrate the wall Holden has built around himself. And nearby, Dr. Stephanie Simmons carries her own burden. The weight of a decision made long ago now crashing back into her present with unforgiving force. Her confession may have brought the truth into the light, but it has also unleashed consequences she can no longer control, leaving her to face the emotional fallout she once tried so hard to avoid. As tensions rise and emotions spiral, the fragile possibility of reconciliation begins to slip further out of reach. Holden's rejection isn't quiet or uncertain. It's firm, unyielding, a line drawn in the sand that neither Malcolm nor Stephanie can easily cross. He doesn't want explanations. doesn't want apologies, and certainly doesn't want a sudden rewrite of his life that forces him to accept strangers as family. The pain of abandonment, whether real or perceived, burns too deeply, leaving him unwilling to risk opening himself up to more hurt. And so, just as quickly as this long buried connection is revealed, it threatens to collapse under the weight of its own intensity. The dream of an instant family, of healing and unity, dissolves into something far more complicated, far more real. Yet, even in the midst of that emotional wreckage, Lily Winters refuses to give up on what could still be salvaged. Where others see a dead end, she sees a beginning. Fragile, uncertain, but worth fighting for. There's a quiet strength in the way she approaches Holden, not with demands or expectations, but with patience and understanding. She knows better than anyone that family isn't always simple, that it can be messy, painful, and filled with moments of doubt. And so, she offers him something different. Not pressure, but presence. A steady reminder that he doesn't have to face this alone. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, her words begin to create small cracks in the armor Holden has built. Tiny openings where something softer might eventually take root. Time, however, remains an unforgiving force, especially for the young and the restless, where stories often burn bright before shifting into the next storm. The return of Shamar Moore and Vivica A. Fox promises that this chapter isn't entirely closed, but it also underscores the fleeting nature of their presence. There's a sense that Malcolm and Stephanie won't have the luxury of time on their side, that whatever progress is made must happen in the narrow window they are given. And within that limited space, something begins to change. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in the subtle shifts of emotion that speak louder than words. Holden's anger doesn't disappear, but it softens just enough to allow a different feeling to emerge. Curiosity, perhaps, or the faintest hint of understanding. In those final moments before distance once again separates them, there's a quiet, almost fragile connection that begins to form. It isn't the picture-perfect reunion one might hope for, nor is it a complete resolution to the pain that has surfaced, but it's something real. A shared acknowledgement of what has been lost and what might still be possible. Holden may not be ready to fully embrace Malcolm and Stephanie, but he no longer stands entirely closed off, and that alone feels like a small victory in a story defined by emotional upheaval. For Malcolm, it's a glimmer of hope, a sign that perhaps the door isn't permanently shut. And for Stephanie, it's a bittersweet reminder that while the past cannot be undone, the truth, no matter how painful, can still open the way for something new. As the story fades into its next chapter, Genoa City is left forever changed by the ripple effects of this long-hidden secret. Bonds have been tested, identities shaken, and hearts pushed to their limits, all in the wake of a single confession that refused to stay buried. And while the future remains uncertain, one thing is clear. In The Young and the Restless, the past is never truly gone. It waits patiently for the moment it can rise again and rewrite everything. In the quiet days that follow, an uneasy calm settles over Genoa City. But it's the kind of silence that feels deceptive, as though something unresolved is still lingering just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise again. For Holden Novak, the emotional storm hasn't passed. It has only shifted inward, becoming something more private, more complicated, and far harder to confront. The anger that once burned so fiercely now flickers into something quieter, tangled with confusion and a reluctant curiosity he can't quite ignore. He begins to replay every word, every glance, every moment from that life-altering confrontation, searching for meaning in places he once refused to look. The truth, no matter how painful, has a way of settling in, rooting itself deep enough that it can no longer be denied. And even as he tries to move forward, there's a growing awareness that the past is now a part of him in a way it never was before. Not far away, Lily Winters continues to carry the fragile thread that now connects them, refusing to let it slip away despite how delicate it feels. She approaches Holden not with urgency but with a quiet persistence, offering moments of normalcy that gently chip away at the walls he's built. Their conversations aren't always easy. Sometimes they're filled with long pauses, other times with tension that lingers just beneath the surface. But within those imperfect exchanges, something real begins to take shape. Lily doesn't try to rewrite his feelings or rush his healing. Instead, she meets him where he is, allowing him the space to process a truth that has turned his world upside down. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Holden begins to respond, not with acceptance, not yet, but with a willingness to listen, to stay, to not walk away quite as quickly as before. Meanwhile, for Malcolm Winters, the weight of what's been lost continues to press heavily on his heart. Each passing day, a reminder of the years he never got to share with his son. There's a quiet resignation in the way he carries himself now, as though he understands that some things cannot be forced, that healing, if it comes at all, must come in its own time. Yet, beneath that acceptance lies a persistent hope, fragile but unyielding, that Holden might one day see him not as a stranger but as something more. And beside him, Dr. Stephanie Simmons faces her own reckoning, the consequences of her past choices no longer something she can outrun. The truth she revealed may have shattered lives, but it has also given her a chance, however small, to confront the person she once was and the decisions that defined her. As the days turn into something steadier, a subtle shift begins to take hold. Not in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in the quiet moments that often mean the most. A shared look that lingers just a second longer than before. A conversation that doesn't end in anger. A silence that feels less like distance and more like understanding. Holden doesn't suddenly embrace the idea of family, but the sharp edges of his resistance begin to soften, making room for something more nuanced, more human. It's in these small, almost invisible changes that the true evolution of his journey begins to reveal itself. Not as a dramatic transformation, but as a gradual opening, a slow and uncertain step toward acceptance. And as the time approaches for Malcolm Winters and Stephanie to once again step away from Genoa City, there's a quiet sense that this isn't truly goodbye, but rather a pause in a story that has only just begun to unfold. The distance between them remains, but it no longer feels as absolute as it once did, no longer defined solely by rejection and pain. There is, at the very least, an understanding that something has shifted, that the door Holden once slammed shut is now left slightly open. It's not a promise, not a resolution, but it's enough to carry forward. A fragile hope that someday, when the timing is right, they might find their way back to one another. As the camera of this unfolding drama slowly pulls back, the streets of Genoa City seem unchanged on the surface. Yet, beneath it all, lives have been irrevocably altered by a truth that refused to stay hidden. In The Young and the Restless, the echoes of the past never truly fade. They linger, shaping the present and quietly guiding the future. And in this story of secrets, identity, and second chances, one thing remains certain. The journey isn't over. It's only just beginning.